introduce John Turnipseed.
Wow. I was looking around to see who she was talking about. Okay. Yeah, I know John Turnipseed, right? You never know. If I said my name, you wouldn't know who was going to walk into the room. And a lot of people think it would be a Native American. Years ago, when we used to order pizzas, and they say, okay, what's your name? John Turnipseed. Yeah, right. Okay. Who's your brother? Johnny Appleseed? I got all that. My name is Dutch origin. And I know the fellow Dutchmen in the room recognized me when I walked in, right? I love my name now because people remember it, okay? There was a time when I didn't love my name. I'm 65, I'll be 66 in September. Men in my family don't live this long. My father died at 54. Two of my brothers died in their 50s. All my uncles died in their 50s. Turnipseed boys live fast and live hard and die young. Okay? So, I'll just give you a little overview. I'm the Executive Vice President of Urban Ventures, okay? A nonprofit in South Minneapolis, has a high school, soccer fields, a farm. We do a lot of stuff. Colin Powell helped us build a $40 million building and things like that. I was their first client 26 years ago. I walked in. And the only reason I was their first client is because I lived in an all-black neighborhood. And every all-black neighborhood has one white guy. Okay? And usually he's adopted by the black people in the community. His name was Art Erickson. And I met him when I was 14, or he met me. I never wanted to talk to him, but he pursued me. He told me that if I changed, my whole family would change. Just give a little history of my family. 1994, the New York Times called us Murderapolis. And they sent in the National Guard. Now, a lot of people have never seen military vehicles coming down the street. But they sent in the National Guard because people were dying in the inner city. Gang violence. The Rolling 30s Bloods were my family. And I was the leader of that family. So that's part of my history, and I'll tell you how I got to that way. My father, and I'll just give you a little of my history. My father was shot in the face by one of his girlfriends, went to jail for 1 year, and left his 6 children. I was shot at 16, did 10 years in jail, and abandoned my children, my 10 children. My son, Little Johnny, was shot 17 times. By the time he's done, he will have done 45 years in prison and abandoned his kids. My grandson was shot at 13, has 1 kid, and is doing life without the possibility of parole. That's a generational curse, okay? So I'll tell you how we got there. Born in Selma, Alabama. You talk about the Bible Belt. There's some Bible Belt up in Missouri or somewhere. That's not true. The Bible Belt and the suspenders are down in Selma, Alabama, in a place called The Bottom. We went to church every day. When I was 6 years old, I could recite every book of the Bible. I wore suits and I could preach. Okay, my grandmother told me, boy, you're going to be a preacher. If President Trump walked in and a preacher walked in, we would make President Trump wait until the preacher sat down. Okay, that's what my family was. And my father was a deacon in the church and sang in the church choir. My mom was, just born in the blood of Jesus Christ and stuff. And every single day I was in church singing hallelujah. I was in charge in the Pentecostal Baptist church when the saints passed out from worshiping. I was the one that would fan them. So we knew it was going to happen. I got about 14 aunties, and I knew that at least 12 of them was going to get slain by the Spirit. So I was waiting, you know, had some little water, you know, pitcher and stuff, and no air conditioning and stuff, so it was hot in there. It might have been the reason why they fell out. But anyway, and I would fan them and stuff, and then after the sermon, I would imitate the preacher. And they loved it, because the preacher used to always say, well, and I could do that with the best of them. Anyway, so he didn't say much more than that, but anyway, he was pretty good. So, then my father moved up here because Martin Luther King was down south in 1960. Down south is not a pleasant place to be. Selma, Alabama. I lived in a place, the address was the bottom. That's what they call it, the bottom. Okay? I didn't know we were poor. I had pork chops for breakfast. Are you kidding me? Gravy and biscuits and stuff, and we had sugar cane and pecan trees outside, man. Watermelon patches and stuff, and we grew everything, and chickens walking around, you know, waiting to be killed. It was just a wonderful life. And I had aunties, grandmothers on either side of me. You know, we lived in this little community. We had Big Mama, which some women would say, why you call her Big Mama? That was endearment. If you were called Big Mama in my family, that means you are the head of the family.
That's right.
Okay, don't matter your size or anything. Okay, then I had Mama Floody, F-L-O-O-D-Y. She was mean. She thought that you could beat the devil out of kids. So she would, before the devil got to them. So I didn't see her much, okay? So, you know, but it was wonderful. You know, my grandfather worked the fields, we were sharecroppers, and then big city, Minneapolis, Minnesota. A lot of people think that ain't a big city. Come from Selma, Alabama, a place called the Bottom. It's the big city. By the time I got up here, my father picked us up. We came up here by train, and he looked different. Down south, he wore overalls every day. He had on some striped pants and an orange shirt, and his hair was different. He didn't have the afro that he had, you know, down south. It was straight. And he talked different. So he had been gone about 2 years. I'm about 8 years old. But the worst thing about him was that he was violent. He hit my mother. Now we're 6 boys, and I'm the oldest. I had never seen violence. I had never had a fight. And here's this man, I later started calling him the boogeyman, hitting my mother. And I'm in the big city, and when I went to a school called Horseman Elementary School, and even the girls beat me up. I was this little skinny kid with a bold haircut, and this, you know, I got a little peanut head. They call it peanut head. I'd show it to you. And it had a bold haircut. Seriously, my mom would put a bowl on top of my head and cut around it and stuff. And I had a funny accent. You know, instead of saying street, I would say great. Because that's what, down south is how we talk. And so every day, the kids would make me talk and then beat me up. So I don't want to go to school. My dad's beating my mother. So I'm really a kid. I needed a psychiatrist, but I couldn't tell them what was going on with me. My mother told me I better not tell them what my daddy did. He'd throw her through windows, break her arm, chain her to downstairs to a post, and I had to go feed her because he wouldn't let her feed herself and go to the bathroom. But I couldn't tell nobody. So that was messing me up. So, you know, I'm going through this life, and so in school they called me Crazy Johnny. Because I only had like 2 pair of pants, and I had this welfare meat sandwiches that I would bring to school because you brought your lunch to school, and it smelled up the whole room. But it's all I had to eat. And in the summertime, I didn't have nothing to eat. I would just wait for my dad to come home and beat my mother. I tried to nail the windows down, I nailed the doors shut, and he would kick them down and all that. And he would come in every night and beat my mother. So first I started praying that he got into an accident, me and my little brothers. We built a little tent, a prayer tent, because I'm from down south. Especially if I prayed around Big Mama and stuff, She'd say, Big Mama would say, go on, pray, boy. And I'd say, Jesus, can I have some pork chops for breakfast? Jesus, can I have some sugar cane? And it would show up, especially if Big Mama was in the room. So I'm thinking that, you know, Jesus and Big Mama, they got something going on, okay? Everything, you know, and so anyway, so I'm up here, I'm praying, but he keeps coming every night. I can't lock all the doors. If I lock, he never hit me, but he crashed the window in, kicked the door down. So me and my little brothers, we prayed for like hours. When the sun went down, that's when we started praying, because we knew he was coming. Then we started praying that somebody beat him up. That didn't happen. Then we started praying that he died. That didn't happen. Then we started praying that we got big enough overnight to kill him. That didn't happen. Then we stopped praying. That's when all the Jesus left me. All of it. Jesus was just a fictional character like Santa Claus. You kidding me? So in the summertime, you know, kids, you know, during the school year we got food. My school, you know, we go to school, and if you didn't have a lunch, they would give you something and stuff. But in the summertime, every kid didn't go to summer school, and so we didn't eat. So I went out and collected pop bottles, Coca-Cola, pop bottles, Pepsi. Got 2 or 3 cents. I'd get me 10 of them, if you can find 10 of them, and I'd go to the grocery store and I'd buy a pound of bologna and some bread and some Kool-Aid if I had enough. And that would feed us the whole weekend. One day, I'm in a garbage can. I'm like 9 years old, 9 or 10. And this guy said, hey, I got some pop bottles for you. And I said, oh, okay. He had 2 of them. Man, that's good, man. He said, ain't you Johnny? Yeah. Well, you want some White Castle hamburgers? Yeah. I don't even know what they are. But he said, hamburger, food, I'm in. So on Lake Street, there was this White Castle. I lived a few blocks from Lake Street. Stuff. He got in his car, went up there, 12 cents a piece. You could buy 8 of them for $1. Okay? So he bought them, and he said, okay, you got 5 brothers at home and a mom. Each one of them get a hamburger, and you get 2. That's good for me. You know, I'm pretty good at math. And 2 hamburgers, and I'm starving. And he said, but, you know, come on in my house. You get a Coca-Cola too. Cool. So I go in his house. Man, those hamburgers tasted like a steak. They were so good. I ate the hamburgers. I drank the Coca-Cola. And he even let me keep the bottle. I got about 3 or 4 Coca-Cola bottles too. And so I went to grab the bag, and he grabbed my arm. He said, I want my hamburgers back. And I said, I ain't got your hamburgers. And he raped me. That took away everything. I no longer was a kid anymore. Even when I talk about it, I can smell it right to this day. And I said to myself, when I took the hamburgers home, I was crying when I walked in the door. Mom said, what's wrong with you? I said, nothing. I just fell down. But I became a potential murderer that day. That experience haunts me even to this day, even when I think about it. But it's important to talk about it because it doesn't have the power that it used to have over me. Okay? I'm not a potential murderer anymore. And I realize there's kids out there today that went through the same thing. And unfortunately, I know what they went through. So now I'm like, I'm no longer a kid. I'm going to kill somebody. I know it. Because I'm going to kill him. He did that to somebody else in the neighborhood about 2, 3, 4 weeks later, and who had a father. And the father beat him half to death, and he left the neighborhood. Now I want you to remember, he had a father, okay? So now I'm growing up, and by the time I'm 12 years old, a cousin of mine comes up from down south through Chicago, by way of Chicago, and he gives me my first gun. And he tells me, if anybody ever touches you, shoot him. So now I'm scared to shoot the gun. I want to shoot my dad, but I'm thinking if I shoot him and he don't die, there's going to be a problem. If I shoot him, then my mom's going to be mad at me because for some reason she likes this dude. Now, you notice I'm talking about him like he's a dude now. He's not my father anymore. So I'm doing armed robberies. By the time I'm 13, I'm locked up in the county home school and juvenile center and Red Wing State Reformatory. And one young jailhouse lawyer told me, I told him, man, I'm going to kill my daddy. He said, you better kill him before you're 18. What? Yeah, if you kill him, you're 16 now. If you kill him, they'll probably put you up till you're 21 and then you can get out. If you kill him when you're 18, you might do 20 years. Oh, okay. So I got out of Red Wing and I went home and I tricked him into a parking lot. I told him that I needed a job and that I had to be there at 5 in the morning. And he took me there. That morning I put a pistol to his head. And I told him if he ever hit my mother again, I'd blow his brains out. And he looked at me like, I'm your father, boy. I said, you ain't my father, man. I'm talking to him like he's just another kid in the street. He realized that he had raised a monster. He realized that he had left me to the wolves and that I had no love for him. That's the last day he hit my mother. Now, I don't recommend that because somebody's dad might be stupid enough to say, shoot me anyways, because I'd have killed him. I had no love for him. He was no longer a human being to me. So now I'm 16 years old. I'm the man of the house. I had my first child when I was 16. I got shot when I was 16. I shot 2 or 3 people when I was 16. You know, they gave me the nickname of Taz for Tasmanian Devil because in a moment's notice, I would get red hot anger and I would hurt you because that guy that raped me, I was hurting him. I couldn't get at him, but I could get at you. And if you looked at me funny, I don't care if you're a man or a woman. If I hated bullies. I hated people that push people around. So I had a lot of friends, weaker kids that couldn't, you know, because I would shoot people. I was Crazy Johnny, they called me. Not to my face. People were scared to say something to my face. I wasn't a big guy, but I would spin around like my head would come off my shoulders and spin around in the air. That's how crazy I was. But it was all to protect me. I was scared. I never wanted to be raped again. So at 18, I'm in St. Cloud Penitentiary. And I started the first prison gang in Minnesota history in 1973. And one of the mandates was that nobody gets raped. That was, if you raped somebody in my clan, we'd kill you. Okay? We didn't kill anybody, but we almost killed a guy. We threw him off the 4th floor and stuff because he raped another kid that came in there. Now, I'm not doing that for the rest of the population. I'm doing that for me because I'm a scared kid. Yeah, I guess it turned out good for other people, but they didn't know why I was doing it. Okay? So we started, I'm in prison, I'm in St. Cloud Reformatory, and I started a group called Women Helping Offenders. WHO, WHO. It was a sham because if you're in prison and it's a nonprofit, nonprofits can come in prison and they can bring drugs. So we loaded the nonprofit up with prostitutes and drug dealers. And they would come in and bring drugs into the prison. That's how I controlled St. Cloud State Penitentiary. And so I meet this woman, and I was like 18, 19, and she's like 40. And she liked me. And even in those days, you could have sex in prison. Okay, a lot of people think you're in prison. You could get anything in prison back in those days. But I said, well, no offense to 40-year-old women, but I was 18. And I said, you're a little bit too old for me. I like 18-year-old girls. She said, well, my daughter is 18. will you take her? I said, what do you mean take her? She said, she's with a pimp. She was a prostitute. I'm going to give her to you because I don't like her pimp. So I said, okay. So I get out of prison a few months later, and she brings her daughter to me, who's a prostitute, who has 2 or 3 friends that are prostitutes. All of a sudden, I'm living in a house with 4 prostitutes, 3 or 4 prostitutes. I don't even know what I'm doing. But I was mentored by Booker Arredondo. Now the name Arredondo sounds familiar. It's the police chief of Minneapolis. That's not him. It was his uncle, who was the biggest pimp in Minnesota. And this is what he told me. He said, this is your motto. He said, and I can't speak in the terms that he said, okay, because I'm going to be a little careful. Okay, I'm in Tasca, okay. Police was just here. Anyway, he said, if a woman doesn't want to go to work, this is what you tell them. If they get pregnant, I don't care. If they're on their period, I don't care. He said, tell them, kill that baby and sell the blood because a pimp's got to live. That was my motto. It didn't matter. The girl's sick, tired, whatever. B, you better kill. You pregnant? Kill the baby and sell the blood because the pimp got to live. Because after you kill the baby, you know, you couldn't work for a few days, so you go to the blood bank and sell some blood. Because the pimp's got to live. It doesn't matter what you have to do. You're not a human being anymore. And I had movies to support me. Superfly. If you ever, there's a movie called Superfly that was put in the black community of a pimp. The Mac of a pimp. Okay? And we glorified it. He had a big car and big headlights and wore big coats and all that kind of stuff. They sold that to us. So in my community, pimps were celebrated. Celebrated. So here I got 4 girls, you know, but I wasn't really a pimp because I fell in love with one of the girls. And when I fell in love with her, I had to get rid of the other girls, and I married her. I would love to say that was a love story that just was beyond measure, but I went to jail until I did an armed robbery. I stopped her from prostituting, and I went to jail, and she ran off with another pimp, and he killed my 3-year-old son, beat him to death. The doctor said he was lucky to live because he had tortured him. Cigarette burns all over his private parts. I won't get into that, I'm sorry. But, you know, the doctor said he was fortunate to die, broken bones. But she was a victim. She had been raised by wolves. That's all she knew was pimp. So when I tried to get her from being a prostitute, she didn't want that life because she had been brainwashed to believe that she's just a whore. And that's what she should be. She later died of an overdose after that death. She couldn't take it. So now I'm, you know, by now I'm just, we got movies to support pimping. There was a group from Memphis, Tennessee that came in. Minnesota girls were a specialty. You were young white farm girls that hadn't been, you know, used up in the street. So in New York and Chicago, we could send you down to the Minnesota Strip. There's a book about that. And you demanded more money, a young white farm girl. So as a pimp, when I was a pimp, the thing I stayed away from is girls that had a strong daddy. Daddy, look, let me tell you something. Moms would come to you and cry and please leave my daughter alone. A daddy might blow your brains out. Okay? I mean, we've had daddies, man, that couldn't beat a fly up, that would come and kick our doors down to get their daughters and stuff. So we stayed away. You don't want to try to pimp a girl that has a father. You know, men, you know, men can be scared in other situations, won't protect themselves, mess with their daughter. Mess with their daughter. Doesn't matter their size, doesn't matter if they're Christian, whatever. Mess with their daughter. Put their daughter out on the street. So that's why we had to move Minnesota girls out of state. So we were known for that. I grew up in the Alexander porn industry, where we had 20 dirty bookstores on Lake Street. So all suburban men came in. My girls were not allowed to date black men because they didn't have enough money. But the suburban guys, you might get $1,000 a day from a suburban guy that would come in and go to the dirty bookstore, and right after he comes out of there all amped up, he wants a girl or a boy. And that's what we did. So my family started and ran the largest gang in Minnesota history. I'm not proud of that. I'm just telling you where I came from. And I was the leader of that. And a lot of people don't know that gangs and prostitution hand in hand. Hand in hand. Okay. So back in the old days, gangs were not a big problem because they didn't have no money. They had no money. So they had maybe 2 guns and you got 100 guys, you got 2 guns and some bats. Okay? It's like a West Side Story, you know. But fast forward to crack cocaine. When history is said and done, crack cocaine would have did more to harm the black community than slavery. Okay? Crack cocaine is the only drug that made black mothers leave their kids. All right? We never were homeless until crack cocaine came along. Because you can't have a crack addict living in your house because they steal everything. Okay? But crack cocaine came in. When the gangs got that, they made money. And then to protect the money, they bought guns. And so I could actually, if I was back in the crack days, I could take $50 and at the end of the day have $2,000 if I worked the whole shift. So then I could buy a big gun to protect my other $2,000 days and stuff. So now crack cocaine is in. Now, every crack dealer needs about 15 prostitutes. He's not a pimp anymore, but they will go out and sleep with men for $10 and bring it to the crack dealer. And so the crack dealer would just wait around. He's got ready, and they don't sleep. Crack, you can stay up for 7-8 days. You can turn about 40 tricks a day off crack cocaine and stuff. So gangs and prostitution go hand in hand. You find, you see a corner where there's 3 or 4 girls working it, there's 2 drug dealers around the corner. Because they never work far from the crack dealer. So African Americans, one of the things we were mad about was Las Vegas. Because we couldn't get into Las Vegas. See, Las Vegas is set up by rich white men so that rich white men can come and service themselves and stuff. And legally. Yeah, we're walking around talking about, man, we want to stop sex trafficking, but we've got senators and governors and everything in Las Vegas that are pimps. They're pimps. What else you want to call it? But they won't let, black people couldn't get in. No black person runs because it's a rich white man's industry. Okay? Then they say the girls, you know, they get regular checkups and all this kind of stuff. Well, that's what they do to dogs when they're breeding them. Yeah, they give them checkups and give them all their shots and stuff so that you can come and buy them. So Las Vegas, Nevada is the biggest pimp in the world. And they don't even hide it. I was down in Las Vegas for a conference and stuff, and I'm with my wife, and everywhere that I go, they're handing me sex things for girls. Pretty soon, you know, a guy walks up, hey, pretty soon you stop taking them. And they're all over the ground. But here we are in the United States talking about we're trying to stop sex trafficking. But if the governor of Las Vegas, Nevada came, we'd shake his hand or her hand. Okay? I look at them like, I know what you're doing. How dare you? You got girls out there, them girls ain't doing that. And who sells their body? Who wants to sleep with an old, wrinkled, 65-year-old black man with a hat on? You understand? I know I'm sort of cute, but, you know, I ain't that cute. Those girls are sold into slavery. And we're doing nothing about it. That's hypocritical. You know, we're just looking at the poor little girls on the street and stuff. These girls are trapped into slavery. And guess what? I'll ask you a question. You know what you get when you get a prostitute to stop prostituting? What is she? She's an unemployed person because you're not going to hire her. She's got a rap sheet. You look at the rap sheet, it says prostitution. You don't want her around your husband. You don't want her walking around the office. She has no skills. We don't, the American public will not hire a prostitute. And guess what? Department of Human Services, because she's got a sex crime, will not let her work a PCA or anything or be around kids. So you got an unemployed person that even people of goodwill turn their nose up to. You want a prostitute babysitting your 3-month-old kid? No. Subconsciously we do that. So there's many areas these girls, once they get out there, what man wants to marry an ex-prostitute? Even though we care for them and we want to help them and everything, we don't want to marry them, don't bring her over here. So what are the girls supposed to do? What becomes of them? And stuff. They have no skills. They've been out on the street. They got a criminal history. And even people of goodwill and good faith look down on them. A prostitute walked in the middle of a church one day dressed like a prostitute. The whole church would turn around and the ushers, we call them ushers in my church, but the ushers would come and escort her out. So where do they find refuge? Pimps. Because we're going to tell them what they want to hear. We're going to give them a place to stay. Pimping is a psychology. Okay? I couldn't believe some of the things I could get women to do. I was taught by Booker Arredondo, who was the biggest pimp in Minnesota history. I ran with the Memphis boys, who are now, 6 of them got indicted, and 2 of them are dead. They'll never get out of prison. But they had girls mowing their lawns with bikinis on. They were just outrageously pimpish, okay? Outrageously. Long Cadillac was one of the places that would give a pimp a car without a credit check or a job. Yeah, Dick Long, I can say that because it was in the paper. He was one of the people that we used. You know, everybody. There was a lot of businesses that supported pimps, okay? But in the black community and stuff, you could see them coming a mile away. I mean, you know, the more gaudy you were. Right now today, I'll tell you what, you go to your computer and you look up players ball. Just type that in. And what you're going to get is Bishop Don Juan, who's the most famous black pimp, who's turned out more girls than anybody else. Okay? Chicago. He's like, they call him a bishop now because he's a minister now that believes in pimping. Yeah. See, the pimp game has no respect for anything. Anything. Churches, whatever. So I'm a minister, so I got to be careful with that one and stuff. But a lot of ex-pimps become ministers because it's sort of the same psychology. Okay? Convincing people to believe in something. Now, I'm not saying all of them, so don't be saying, you're a pimp. No. But that's really true. So you look up Players Ball, every year they have a Players Ball. And they nominate the Pimp of the Year. Yeah, and And they have it in fancy hotels, and they're not hiding the fact that they're into sex trafficking. Players Ball, I guarantee you, look that up, you'll be disgusted. And Bishop Don Juan is usually the MC. Yeah, I know him, I know the people he hangs with and stuff. I'm not proud of who I became. I'm proud of that I got back to who I really am. I'm a child of God. I was raised to help people. I was raised to be a disciple. I lost my way. So, I'm going to tell you about a kid and stuff. And I got about 20 minutes, right? All right. Let me tell you, I come from a gang background, Prime Minister, Papa Johnny, Uncle Johnny, that's what they call me. I probably controlled 500-600 people during my term and stuff. I was considered fair, but brutal. Okay, hurt a lot of people. Okay, 2 of my grandsons are paralyzed. 1 is doing life without parole. 5 of my nephews will never get out of prison. My son won't get out of prison until he's 65. You will reap what you sow. Okay, all that glamorous stuff they talk about, gang, you take all the glamour out of there. I've been shot. One of my kids killed at 3 and stuff. I mean, I reaped what I sowed. Okay, I've hurt a lot of people, and a lot of people hurt me. I've been tied up, put in trunks, kidnapped, beat half to death and stuff. So I don't know where the glamour stuff was. I didn't see it. So I straightened out my life 25 years ago. That white guy, if you look at my movies, there's 3 short films. Hollywood actors, I don't act in them and stuff. As cute as I am, I don't act in them. And stuff. And the Hollywood actors are known actors that did it for free because they wanted to help me tell the story of this kid. And what makes my story so good is that I'm very ordinary. If I ain't never been 6 feet tall in my life, I've been trying, I used to try, when the doctor prevented you, I try to get up. I just want to be 6 feet tall. Regardless of what people say, all black men can't dance. I ain't got no rhythm. I can't sing. I ain't got no jump shot. I ain't got no hair. I am very average and stuff. And that's what makes my story resonate with a lot of young men or older men, is that, I changed my life 25 years ago, and it's really became a good life. So when I changed my life, I was in, when I was in the gang, everybody has a nickname, right? So when I gave my life to Christ, and I gave it, Tom Lydon of Channel 9 News did a story on me. If you look it up, you'll see Tom Lydon and me that won an Emmy Award for crime. Okay? Tom Lydon came to I was always smart. Because when I went to jail, I didn't work. I went to school. Because you can't, I won't be no janitor because I can't sell drugs while I'm mopping the floor. But if I'm in school, I can move around. So I went to school and stuff. And I became a computer programmer. And I'm called a COBOL master. There's an old language called COBOL that hasn't changed since 1974. So once you learn it and you're good at it, and I was taught by 2 murderers in Stillwater State Penitentiary and stuff. One of them killed Miss Elizabeth Condon, I think her name was. And one of them killed, J.P. Morgan killed his wife. But they were geniuses and stuff, and day and night they would teach me this language. I get out of prison, and parole officers make you have a job. So I get this job, Minneapolis Community and Technical College, as a teacher. Because they didn't do a criminal background check 30 years ago. So as cute as I am, I walk in there, and I know this language. They can tell if you know what you're talking about. And they hire me to teach disabled students. And what made my job so special is I would change catheters and all that. I would model, and I started loving these kids that couldn't, one of my kids could not move anything but their head. One of my kids were blind. I call them my kids, but they were older. One of my kids had 6, 7 personalities. Named Mary Ann, one of my favorites. She was about this tall, and she looked up to me. Well, yeah. I mean, she Mr. Turnipseed, and I wore suits all the time, and I was a good teacher because I loved those kids. And it was a front for my criminal activity that I was running internationally, actually. You know, we had made connections with Cuba and Mexico, and we were running drugs and computer equipment and stuff, all that. I was making a lot of money. But I had to have this front so that I can buy houses and credit. So I'm teaching. And one day, they finally figured out who I was, the police. See, the police don't sleep. I didn't know that. I thought when I went to bed, they went to bed. No, they up, another one come and take the other one's place and stuff. And they say, hey, this John Turnipseed guy is doing some stuff. I'm sleeping. So they got a head start. When I wake up in the morning, they already up. And they figured out who I was. They already knew me. I'm in the system. I got 10 felonies. I've been to prison 3 times and stuff. And they figured out this theft ring. So they catch me. And I was tired. I'm like, I'm done with this. And I confessed to 50 felonies. My lawyer almost blew a gasket. He's like, what? I had a paid attorney. I had a lot of money, okay? I got $300,000 worth on retainer with him because I would get into big trouble. And I just said, I'm done. It was right in Edina, Minnesota that they busted me. So I made a deal with them. I'll take 40 years. I'm 40 years old if you let me finish teaching my class. And the detective thought I was high or crazy. I had stopped getting high. And I wasn't crazy. But these kids depended on me. So boom, I go to jail. People in the criminal world thought that I had turned state's evidence, meaning that I had told on a bunch of people because I got out of jail. But they let me out of jail because they were going to give me 9 months to finish this class. It was a year-long class that I had the kids 9 hours a day, just me and stuff. I never missed a day because I loved what I was doing. My best student was blind, and now he's teaching at Courage Center, I believe. He's still teaching computers to blind people. Okay? I mean, finally I was doing something good in the world. And so I get out, and nobody knows I've been arrested, and I go to school, but Tom Lyden, crime reporter, heard about the story, and he came to my job with those big cameras. You know, they ain't got them, they're big, they were big cameras. And Mary Ann comes to my door. Mr. Turnipseed, the newspaper's out there, they want to talk to you. You're going to be teacher of the year. I said, no. So she said, I'm going down. And she ran back down. She's about this tall. She's about 30 years old. And she runs back up, and she's crying. Mr. Turnipseed, you got to tell them to stop saying what they're saying about you. That you're a gangster and a murderer and you're a pimp. That crushed me. I went into my office and barricaded myself in the room. If I'd had my gun, I'd have killed myself. Because I finally realized that people depended on me for something good. And I got on the floor and I started crying. And I get people are banging on my door, and my boss is trying to get in, and I'm just crying uncontrollably. And I remember what Big Mama said. Boy, Jesus is on the main line. Back in the old days, they had telephone systems where, you have party lines. You might be on the phone and Aunt Ruthie or Billie Jean and stuff is talking and stuff. You can hear everybody's conversation. But the operator had the main line. And that's what she meant, that Jesus always is on the phone. And she told me, boy, Jesus, and there's a song, Jesus is on the main line. Tell him what you want. And I decided to call him. I called him in my desperate need. And I said, God, I don't care what happens to me, but don't let these kids be hurt. And all of a sudden, I can't tell you what he felt like. I can't tell you all I know is I felt a sigh of relief, man. I got up off that floor. I felt like a king. I'm like, oh man, it's gonna be all right. I dusted myself off, wiped the snot off me, and walked outside and stuff, and everybody thought I lost my mind. But I gave my life to Christ that day, 25 years ago on that floor. And I was supposed to get 40 years, and then they bargained it down to 10. And the day I went to court, and it's sort of a long story, so I won't try to do it, they gave me probation and told me to go back and teach those kids. Because Jesus was on the main line, you know. So I went back, and so now I'm living my new life. And it's really good, okay? I'm on probation, I don't care. Probation just means follow the law. You can get a traffic ticket or something, you know, they ain't gonna trip about that. Just do what you're supposed to do. Probation actually wants you to do better. Probation actually will help you become a better person, okay? Probation officers are not evil little witches and warlocks locked in a room. They're trying to help you. You ungrateful little snot. My PO, she wrote my first resume. You know, she loved me. She stayed PO for 2 extra years to make me, till I got off parole. Yeah, because she loved me and stuff. So now I'm living my life, and one day, and I got to tell you an ugly story, real quick. I only got about 7 minutes and stuff. My son gets shot, and the people that shot him are going to come to the hospital and kill him. So I got to go get him out of the hospital. I've changed my life by now, but I still have ears in the street. Okay? My son was a pimp, a despicable human being just like me. You know, apples don't fall far from the tree. Okay, I raised him to be a pimp and a thug and a pit bull, and that's what he was. So he's been shot 17 times in his life. People don't like him. So I go to get him from the hospital. And then I said, look, I got to put you a place, because the gangbangers are going to kill him. My intel in the street said they're going to kill him. So I go and I take him to a place that nobody knows. I've got a new life now. So I got credit cards and everything. So I can get an apartment in my name and stuff, and nobody knows where he's at. So I take him out of the hospital 2 or 3 days early before the doctors, because I know they're going to come kill him. Because a friend of mine is one of the guys that got the contract to kill him. There really is contracts and stuff. And he said, man, I can't do it, man, but they're going to come. I told him that I wouldn't do it, but they're going to come kill your son in the hospital. So I take him, and I put him in a place, and then I went to get his kids, because he's married to a lady. And she has a 12-year-old daughter. And she gets in the car. I hadn't seen her in a year. And she's got a baby with her. So I said, whose baby is that? She said, mine. So I said, yo, you're 12 years old. She said, yeah. And I said, let me see him. I looked at him. I said, he looks just like Johnny, my son. She said, it's his. Well, right then, I got my son, you know, I just got him out of the hospital. I got to get him to a safe house. This 12-year-old girl is holding a baby that she's had by him. I take him to the safe house, and then I call the police on him. I told the girl to go to school the next day and tell her teacher, tell the social worker that she has a baby by a 35-year-old man. Because that rape came back to me. And I seen a child that my son had raped. He did 10 years for that. He didn't talk to me for a couple of years, but that's all right. And so that child now, he is strung around on drugs. I don't like this story because, you know, it's sort of, you know, it's talking about my son. He is strung around on cocaine, methamphetamines, and all this kind of stuff, and actually was raping her daily. And her mother was participating. They all slept together. Just a nasty story, okay? This is a sex trafficking conversation, so I can talk about this stuff. Okay. After 2 years, she came to me with the baby and said, I can't take this baby no more. Every time I look at him, I think about being raped every day. And technically, he had adopted this girl. He'd been married to her mother for about 3 years. When she was 9, he adopted her. By the time she was 11, he was sleeping with her and stuff. She said, I can't look at this baby. Will you take him, Papa? That's what she calls me. And I took the baby. Cute little kid, little buck teeth, big old water head. I go, that's my boy. You know, you see there, that one there, yeah, that one wobbling, just forgets everything. You know, he's a straight A student, by the way. So I took him in, and I taught him everything. I taught him his alphabets. The kid could recite the 50 states and his alphabets, because I had nothing else to do. I had a new life, and me and my wife, she was a teacher and stuff, so every day he got all the attention, okay? He got to hold the remote and everything. He was the king of our, and one day she came back to get him, because she needed to get on Section 8. So she took him. For 3 years, I couldn't find him or her, because she was a prostitute. She had went underground. So one day I'm sitting at home, and I get a phone call, and I look at the phone, and it's the police. I know it's the police. See, you've been arrested a few times. You know when the police is called. I know it, so I picked it up. I'm like, because I ain't did nothing. I had to think, I ain't did nothing in 12 years. I'm cool. I picked it up and said, Mr. Turnipseed? He said, yes. He said, we're with the, sort of like a spectral, with the criminal task force for drugs and alcohol. I said, yes, because I'm working with men, so it could be one of my guys. He said, we just raided a drug house. There's a 7-year-old child in the drug house. He's been sexually abused. He was naked and being just sold to the customers. He said, the only thing he knows, he doesn't know his mother's last name, but he knows your first and last name, he knows your address, he knows your phone number. So either you're messing with him, or he's very special to you. And I said, I described him, got a big water head, 2 buck teeth. Yes, that's Devon. That's my baby. They gave him to me 2 days later and stuff, without all the formalities. And I'm raising that kid. Today that kid, right now he's playing in a basketball tournament somewhere. My wife took him. You know, he ain't that good. But he likes it. Yeah, we set him in the foul of a kid and stuff. But he's a straight A student. He had a great personality and stuff. His mother and his father, his mother can't look at him because she reminds, and his father is just not a father. But that's my baby and stuff. So I was commissioned by God to take care of him. To kill, Goliath was a metaphor for father absence, drug addiction, prostitution. I'm David in his life. And I'm going to raise him for the rest of my life. You can't take this kid from me. I went to the court and fought to get him and stuff. I'm his guardian and stuff, and I will raise him. I wish his daddy loved him, but I got him. And think of all the women out there, men and boys that are in prostitution that nobody's got. But they got you guys. You're here because you care. You're here because you know it's horrific. And even if you've never experienced it, you're fighting for them just by your mere presence. So Act United, man, thank you guys. Thank you. Because you're loving people that most people don't want to love. You're caring about people that have no voice. You know, an ex-prostitute will never be president. Okay? An ex-prostitute will never be a school teacher because of people in the world that won't forgive and forget and understand where they came from. So in closing, I'm a Baptist minister, so I'll close in 30 seconds. Usually Baptist ministers lie, okay? I'm going to close right now. Yeah. I just love the work of Act United, and everybody needs to be informed about this sex trafficking stuff, and we need to talk to Las Vegas about their legalized prostitution, the hypocritical thing that they're doing to our babies because they belong to us. So thank you very much.
Thank you.